What happens when you take the biggest football club in the world and decide to build a team of superstars like they're collectible action figures? Not just great players, but global icons. Men who could walk off a football pitch and straight into a fashion shoot. Legends whose names echoed from Tokyo to Toronto. Real Madrid's Galacticos weren't just a football team, they were a brand, a show, a spectacle. But here's the thing, when you assemble that many megastars in one dressing room, the results aren't always magical. In fact, the very project that made Madrid look invincible on paper eventually became the reason they fell apart on the pitch. This is the story of how Real Madrid tried to build football's version of the Avengers and why it all came crashing down. To understand how it all began, we have to go back to the year 2000. Florentino Pérez wasn't the president of Real Madrid just yet. He was running for the position, and he knew he needed a masterstroke to beat the incumbent Lorenzo Sanz. So Pérez made a bold promise to fans. If they voted him in, he would sign Luis Figo, who was Barcelona's best player and one of the biggest stars in world football at the time. Now, to even think about snatching Figo from Barca was borderline madness. He was their crown jewel, but Pérez had a plan and the money to back it up. He activated Figo's release clause for a then world record fee and brought him to the Bernabéu. It worked. Pérez won the election and Figo became the first Galactico. But this wasn't just about one signing. Pérez was laying the foundations for an ambitious project, a new version of Real Madrid, where every season would bring in a new global superstar. In 2001, they signed Zinedine Zidane from Juventus for another record-breaking fee. In 2002, it was R9. In 2003, Beckham arrived from Manchester United. Every signing was a bona fide superstar, both in terms of footballing talent and commercial power. This approach became known as the Galacticos policy. The idea was simple: combined world-class players with marketing genius. The team would be unbeatable on the pitch and unstoppable off it in terms of brand growth. And early on, it seemed like it might actually work. Let's not get it twisted. At their best, the Galacticos were a total joy to watch. You had Zidane pulling the strings in midfield with his silky elegance. R9, when match fit, was one of the most lethal strikers the game has ever seen. Figo delivered crosses with laser precision. Beckham brought both style and substance. And behind them, you had club legends like Raúl, Casillas, Roberto Carlos, and Guti. This wasn't just hype, it was real footballing magic. In 2001, they won La Liga. In 2002, they lifted the Champions League, with Zidane scoring that volley against Bayer Leverkusen. A goal so good that it's still replayed today in every UCL highlight reel. They followed that up with the Intercontinental Cup and another La Liga title in 2003. Stadiums were packed, merchandise sales skyrocketed. Real Madrid became the most valuable sports franchise on the planet. But it wasn't just the trophies, it was the image, the swagger. Real Madrid was football's Hollywood. Other clubs had great players, sure, but Madrid had icons. You could argue that no team in history had ever looked better in a team photo. The philosophy behind it all was dubbed Zidanes y Pavones, pairing a star like Zidane with talented youth academy players like Francisco Pavón. The idea was to blend the sparkle of the Galacticos with the spirit of the Madridismo, and for a while it looked like a masterstroke. But then, the cracks began to show. The first big problem: balance. While Real Madrid was loading up on attacking talent, they were neglecting the less glamorous but equally vital parts of a football team. One of the biggest warning signs came in 2003 when the club let Claude Makelele leave for Chelsea. He was the midfield anchor, the guy who did the dirty work, won back possession, and gave the flair players the freedom to create. When Makelele asked for a raise, Pérez refused. Why? Because, as he reportedly put it, he doesn't sell shirts. That one decision perfectly captured the Galactico mindset. The focus wasn't just on winning, it was on looking good while winning. Marketability had started to matter more than tactical stability. Even Zidane admitted years later that Makelele was the engine of the team. Without him, the whole machine inadvertently started to crumble. Think of Rodri's importance for Pep City for a modern day parallel. Another misstep was the sacking of Vicente Del Bosque in 2003. Del Bosque had guided Madrid to 2 Champions League titles and 2 La Ligas in just 4 years. The players loved him, he kept egos in check, but Pérez wanted a more modern image and let him go. What followed was a carousel of managers who struggled to handle the pressure and personalities in the dressing room. Carlos Queiroz, Jose Antonio Camacho, Vanderlei Luxemburgo, one after another, they came and went. And inside the squad, things weren't exactly harmonious either. You had egos clashing. Ronaldo was known to skip training. Beckham was a global icon, but some questioned whether he disrupted the team's balance. Raúl was losing influence. Figo wasn't the same player he had been in 2000. And Zidane, as brilliant as he was, couldn't carry the team on his own forever. It was becoming clear. This was a team of stars, but not necessarily a star team. By the mid-2000s, the Galactico dream was clearly unraveling. Between 2004 and 2006, Real Madrid went 3 full seasons without a single trophy, which was a disastrous run by their ridiculous standards. The beautiful football turned inconsistent, the goals dried up, and the defense often non-existent. The very thing that made the Galacticos so marketable in the first place was their status as superstars, but it also made them incredibly fragile as a team. The tactical structure was flimsy. Opposition teams figured out that if they bypassed the midfield and pressed hard, Madrid had no plan B. Each season saw more chaos. Big names were booed by fans. The Bernabéu, once a stage of greatness, became a theater of frustration. And make no mistake, this wasn't a budget issue. Real Madrid was still spending money, but the recruitment strategy was more style than substance, more about flash than fit. In 2004, they brought in Michael Owen. In 2005, it was Robinho and Sergio Ramos. While Ramos turned into a legend, Robinho was a mixed bag. He came with flair, but struggled with consistency and fitness. Meanwhile, Barcelona were on the rise. While Madrid was chasing shirt sales, Barca built a balanced squad around Ronaldinho, Xavi, Iniesta, and finally, Messi. They played with identity, chemistry, and purpose. By the time Ronaldinho received a standing ovation at the Bernabéu in 2005 after destroying them in a 3-0 win, the message was clear. The Galacticos had lost their shine. In 2006, Florentino Pérez stepped down as president. The man who built the Galacticos project had seen it spiral out of control. The grand experiment to combine the world's biggest stars under one roof had officially failed in its first incarnation. What remained was a club in crisis. They had global popularity, yes. The brand was thriving, but the football, well, that was another story. Between 2003 and 2006, they won nothing. No La Liga, no Champions League, not even a Copa del Rey. For a team filled with Ballon d'Or winners and legends, it was a drought that exposed everything wrong with the Galacticos policy. Too many egos, too little balance, and an obsession with marketability over match performance. So how do we remember the Galacticos today? Well, it depends on how you look at it. From a commercial and cultural standpoint, the project was a massive success. Real Madrid became the most recognized football club in the world. The Galacticos sold jerseys, packed stadiums, and dominated headlines. They elevated football to something even bigger, a kind of global entertainment spectacle. Zidane's volley in the 2002 Champions League final is still considered one of the most iconic goals of all time. Figo, Beckham, and Ronaldo turned Real Madrid into the ultimate football fantasy. But if you measure success the traditional way, by trophies, then the Galacticos ultimately underperformed. For all the talent they had, the squad lacked the grit and balance needed to dominate year after year. Their dominance was short-lived. The experiment worked for a season or two, but then fell apart. And that's the part that many fans can't forget. Interestingly, some of the players who weren't Galacticos had the biggest impact in the post-era rebuild. Players like Casillas, Ramos, and Guti remained with the club and helped lay the groundwork for the future. Years later, when Pérez returned as president in 2009, he didn't completely abandon the Galactico approach, but he evolved it. That summer, Madrid signed Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, Benzema and Xabi Alonso in one of the most ambitious transfer windows in football history. It looked like Galacticos 2.0, but this time there was a clear attempt to balance stardom with structure. Cristiano Ronaldo was a megastar, but Xabi Alonso was a midfield orchestrator. Benzema wasn't flashy, but offered tactical intelligence, and Madrid invested in building a proper supporting cast. The results? Much better. Under this updated version, Real Madrid won multiple Champions League titles, including the famous three-peat under Zidane from 2016 to 2018. It proved that you can blend stars and substance, but you have to respect the balance. The Galacticos taught the footballing world an important lesson. Trophies aren't won in transfer windows. You can sign the best players on paper, but without the right structure, chemistry, and coaching, success is far from guaranteed. They also sparked a conversation about what matters more in football: style or substance, marketability or trophies. Clubs like PSG and even Chelsea at times have flirted with the Galactico model in modern days, buying superstars, prioritizing names over fit, and often they've run into the same issues. The Galacticos reminded us that football is still a team sport. 11 stars don't make a constellation unless they're aligned, and no matter how many shirts a player sells, they still need to track back and fight for every ball on the pitch. Looking back now, the Galacticos era feels like a golden dream with a grey ending. The excitement, the spectacle, the insane collection of talent, it was all real, and still, the lack of long-term success made it feel like a missed opportunity. For fans, the memories are still vivid. Figo's flair, it was an era that gave us unforgettable moments, but not sustained greatness. The Galacticos were football's most ambitious experiment, part soap opera, part symphony. And in many ways, the world of football hasn't been the same since. So what do you think? Were the Galacticos the greatest team never to truly dominate? Or were they a necessary step in football's evolution into the global phenomenon it is today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into football's most iconic stories.